This is The Sports Life.
With it is Jackson. He scores! He scores and he's fouled! MSU has come back from 22 down. The ball game is over. The ball game is over. Michigan State was down 22 at halftime. The Spartans come back for arguably one of the great comebacks in the history of Michigan State basketball.
And welcome into the Sports Life. We'll team in here along with Dalton Shetler. Well, I can add to that opening bit, Dalton. Not only was that one of the biggest comeback wins for Michigan State in the game, at one point the Spartans were down 27 in the first half, which marks the biggest comeback in history of Big Ten men's basketball.
Just another day in the office, you know.
And MSU did win the Big Ten title that year. But they weren't going to do it if they didn't get that win. Well, we have a fun show lined up for you today, and it's an interesting show. We had a chance to sit down and visit with Michigan State President Kevin Guskiewicz. And what makes that visit timely for our show is that he has an amazing background in athletic medicine. And now, as a president of a university, has great influence on the future and the direction of college athletics. So we chatted about that, and I think people will find that intriguing.
Blending that kind of perspective and insight, background experience, it's going to be a lot of fun to get to a little bit later on. Also, we're celebrating Black History Month here on The Sports Life, and with that, we're bringing back the Game of Change cover story that we've done here in the past. And, of course, it salutes the great contest between Loyola Chicago and Mississippi State that was held at Jennison Fieldhouse and takes you through the journey of how Mississippi State had to flee the state to even make this game possible back in the days of segregation. It's a wonderful tale, and we'll be getting into that a little bit later.
So what do we got for the Sounds of the Week?
Well, Sounds of the Week, we played the biggest comeback in Big Ten men's basketball history. Michigan State trailed Northwestern by 27. We're celebrating some anniversaries here during this show with the Sounds of the Week. That was back on February 17th, 2018, so earlier this week. And after that game, you can imagine everybody's heart rate was a little bit elevated. Head coach Tom Izzo had joined the radio network and talked about that game and that comeback performance that was so memorable for Michigan State.
Tom, at halftime, could you see it in their eyes that they could come back and pull off this fabulous comeback?
You know, I can't say I did. I mean, it'd be a nice storybook if I said, yeah, I saw it in their eyes. But, you know, I was disappointed in them at halftime. And I told them, you know, they learning a good lesson that if defense is what's consistent. And if you're not consistent, all of a sudden you start missing shots. And we missed some good shots in the first half, missed some layups. But our defense is what let us down. And so I said, we're just going to chop it down. We took it in 5-minute intervals. We said at the 15-minute mark, we'd like to have it down to 16. At the 10-minute mark, we'd like to have it down to maybe 9 or 10, and I think we got it down to 7 or something. And then boom, boom, boom.
Tom, before we let you go, we've just been notified that this comeback, when you were down 27 points, is the greatest comeback in the history of Michigan State basketball.
Well, then my team, what I said to him, I said, I think it was the greatest comeback. And I said, I'm cool with those breaking records all the time, but I'd rather not that kind of record to be broken. So let's not go for 28 next game or something so we can prove ourselves. We'll just kind of do a better job.
My heart can't take it.
There you go. Thanks a lot, Tom.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Thanks, Tom.
So Tom Izzo, his post-game comments after the biggest comeback in the history of men's Big Ten basketball, coming back from 27 down to beat Northwestern in a critical game in their run for a Big Ten championship.
Absolutely. As we said, it was mid to late February at that time. It was a huge game, but Michigan State does go on to win the Big Ten title. And as we said, we're celebrating anniversaries. Well, 40 years ago this week, we had one of the most memorable moments in Big Ten men's basketball history. Matter of fact, make it college men's basketball history. It was February 23rd, 1985. Purdue and Indiana set for another Katy and Knight rivalry. And it already kind of got off the rails pretty early on because Bob Knight throws a chair out onto the floor as Steve Reed was at the free throw line. We'll bring you the TV audio of what it sounded like, the reaction to the chair sliding across the lane. And Steve Reed, who was at the free throw line, we later caught up with him, and we have his version of the story after this audio.
Fred Jaspers now chasing Bobby Knight back to his chair.
And
he's got him right there. There's the tee.
technical against the bench and against Bob Knight. Steve Reed, an excellent free throw shooter, will have the honors shooting the technicals.
Looky here. Bobby Knight just threw his chair clear across the free throw lane.
And I think Fred
Unbelievable. He picked up another tee.
It's 11-6. We're just 5 minutes into the contest, and this has erupted.
The one that history has forced me to remember as much as anything was the Indiana-Purdue game my senior year when Bobby Knight threw the chair. And I happened to be the guy at the free throw line getting ready to shoot a technical foul when the chair came flying across. So that's kind of my claim to fame, if you will, and it's amazing still that people still want to ask you about that incident. You know, especially those that are involved in the Indiana-Purdue rivalry year in and year out. That's a piece of that rivalry that will probably live on for a long time in terms of history. I have not had an opportunity to speak to him since that time. The real discouraging part of the story is that I was supposed to be the team's best free throw shooter, and I had 6 free throws and proceeded to make only 3 of the 6. So fortunately, we won the game. Coach Katie and I can laugh about it now, but at the time it wasn't a real funny matter.
Steve Reed at the free throw line 40 years ago when Bobby Knight threw the chair. And I will say this, if I was shooting free throws and guys were throwing chairs, maybe I'd be off a little bit, just maybe. So 2 big moments, one of those sounds of the week. Biggest comeback in history of MSU men's basketball. In 40 years, the famous Bobby Knight throwing the chair. Well, when we come back, a visit with Michigan State President Kevin Guskiewicz. But first, this time out.
So, got one for you, boss.
Oh, yeah?
What's black, white, and dented all over?
I give up.
The company truck. I know, but thanks to our agent, we've already submitted an insurance claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Lucky for you, that's simple human sense.
Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you.
Medicaid and CHIP offer free or low-cost health coverage for children and teens. Hospital and doctor visits, prescriptions, shots, and more are covered. That's peace of mind for parents if a child is sick or gets injured. And parents may now be eligible for Medicaid too, even if they've applied in the past. Enrollment is always open. Visit InsureKidsNow.gov or call 1-877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
If you have diabetes, listen up. If you have insurance, you can qualify for a continuous glucose monitor. With a CGM, you can continuously track your levels and trends and spend more time in range, significantly lowering your A1C. More importantly, a CGM eliminates the one thing most people with diabetes hate, painful finger sticks. Order your new continuous glucose monitor today. If you use insulin and if you've seen your diabetes care provider within the last 6 months, you may qualify for your own CGM right now. We'll do all the insurance paperwork and deliver your new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost to you. Medicare and most insurances will cover your CGM, so don't wait. Have your insurance handy and call the Aptiva Medical CGM Health Hotline right now.
800-948-6912. 800-948-6912. 800-948-6912. That's 800-948-6912.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Roxanne Watson is on a mission.
Hello, how are you doing today?
She wants more people to register as organ, eye, and tissue donors.
Are you an organ donor?
Yes, I am.
Yay.
My goal is to sign up the most people in the United States.
What drives her? Roxanne's own life was saved through the gift of a heart transplant, made possible by an organ donor.
I decided that day that I was going to devote myself to the cause of organ donation and signing people up and honoring my donor by doing that.
Now she's back to health, and she's a powerful force helping to save lives every day through her work. Imagine what you can make possible by leaving behind the gift of life.
8 people can be helped with the major organs, and up to 50 people can be helped with a little bit of everything. And when you think about it that way, that you could help that many people, it's amazing. It really is.
Learn more and sign up as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. Go to organdonor.gov. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. Will Tiemann here along with Dalton Shetler. Well, Michigan State's President Kevin Guskiewicz is a very unique individual for the position he holds and how he got there. You see, in the NCAA, the presidents and chancellors, at the end of the day, they are the bosses. They are the ones that okay the direction of intercollegiate athletics. Well, many of those individuals are a little short on firsthand experience in athletics. But for President Guskiewicz, that is not the case. He began his, I guess for lack of a better term, his involvement in intercollegiate athletics as a trainer. And then from there he went on to become a neuroscientist and one of the leaders in studying how to prevent negative repercussions from concussions. And then from there he moved on to becoming a chancellor at the University of North Carolina and now the president at Michigan State University. And so, Dalton, because of his very unique situation, he has a different understanding of things, I think, than most presidents do. So he was kind enough to sit down with us. And the first thing we talked about was, because of his unique background, does that really help him in shaping some of his decision-making when it comes to intercollegiate athletics?
It has, Will. I am a big believer in making informed decisions, surrounding yourself with good people that help you make the tough decisions that come with this job as a university president. And as a researcher studying sport-related concussion for many years, tough decisions there as well about what research questions we want to try to take on and tackle, knowing that some of these in the area of sport concussion were somewhat controversial 15, 20, 25 years ago when we started this work. And so I have said that there's an art and science to academic leadership, and I certainly, that's how I built my research program over the years, and so much of that involved interacting with coaches and team physicians, athletic trainers, and so I love to walk the sidelines of games and practices when I get some time to do that, and I think it helps me in my role as president.
So, running a major university, there's a lot of things going on. Athletics is just part of that. When it comes to your role in terms of how you govern all this stuff, how much time do you set aside for this?
Well, it's one of many different constituents that are that I respond to and want to interface with, and so it is a fraction of the overall time. But again, I'm a little bit of a different probably university president in that I have been involved in intercollegiate athletics, and so I might spend a bit more time than the average president. And this is a place at Michigan State, as you know, that we love our sports here. We devote a lot of attention and a commitment to our student athletes and our 570,000 living alums. They are diehard Spartans and Spartan fans, and so I enjoy those engagements.
Your role as a university president when it comes to governing college athletics, how do you see it?
Well, there's a lot that's happening around legislation right now. We're continuing to work closely with our fellow Big Ten universities and the NCAA colleagues that I've gotten to know across some of the other conferences to try to help monitor some of the developments that are out there. It's a changing landscape. It's been changing dramatically over the past 4 or 5 years. I recall my first meeting among the ACC presidents about 6 years ago, and in New York City, and we were at the ACC basketball tournament, and we talked a lot about this, about pay for play that was on the horizon, about NIL. I joke that at that time we could barely spell NIL, and that lands, and about should we be trying to protect amateurism in college sports? Well, as you well know, that ship sailed fairly quickly after that. And so it's just about staying in communication with those at the Big Ten, NCAA, and also looking to see what this new Congress is going to do in terms of perhaps putting legislation in around some of these issues.
Well, this is an easy question, probably not an easy answer. If you look at all these issues, Kevin, facing intercollegiate athletics, what are some of the biggest ones? You mentioned a couple.
Well, obviously, the settlement that we're all waiting from the judge to make a decision on, that's likely going to happen in April, and we are, this would is a settlement that would cover some of the quote unquote back pay for student athletes, that have come to the roughly 60 institutions across what's now the Power Four, and but also it's forward-looking about allowing for revenue share up to approximately $21 million annually, which is the average. It's about 20% of the average of those Power Four schools' annual budgets, and that revenue comes from ticket sales, from sponsorship, and from media rights. And it would allow institutions to pay up to that amount to student athletes. And then I think the big question becomes, how do you manage the NIL beyond that, should it still exist, and then whether or not there should be scholarship limits. There's some again in the settlement agreement, a lot of conversation that's gone into that around roster limits and scholarship limits. But we're again, I think we're well positioned, awaiting the judge's decision in April that will allow us to move forward. So we're sort of in this waiting period, and then there's obviously the portal that has become concerning, and when that portal is open for certain sports, and that's become a challenge. As I've had a chance to talk to a number of our coaches here, and the way in which that's being managed right now.
Well, are there possible fixes? We've identified problems, but can the NCAA fix it, or do we need federal intervention here?
Well, again, I think Charlie Baker, the NCAA president, has said that they're pleased that Judge Wilkins has given preliminary approval of this landmark settlement, as I think to put it in his words. But there's still a lot of unanswered questions. I think even with the settlement, should it come to be, I think that there's talk in Congress about how can they help level the playing field, because there's still concerns about the way in which NIL could exist, and the transparency around what one player may be receiving from the actual revenue share, but also from additional NIL funds. And so there's a good chance Congress is going to step in. That's what we've been hearing with this Republican-led legislature, Congress, I should say, and possibly putting some guardrails in place. So we will see.
Well, your background is pretty interesting. You've got this distinguished background in athletic training and research. How in the heck did you go from that to administration at a university level at the highest level?
Well, I think it goes to taking on big challenges. I mean, when I began my research career back in the early 90s around sport-related concussion, there were very few researchers taking this on. I was at a place, University of Virginia, doing my doctoral work, where I started it and studied under one of the grandfather of sport neuropsychology, Jeff Barth, and then went down to University of North Carolina, where they were willing to allow me to utilize that platform and work closely with the athletic trainers and coaches and team physicians to put in place a concussion protocol, utilizing student athletes to test the different protocols. And from there, I moved up into working with the NCAA and the NFL, and it came around to just taking on big challenges. And then when I was asked to move into a department chairship at UNC and then a dean role, I sort of built great teams to solve big problems, and so I carried out that work in academic leadership in much the same way as I did putting a hypothesis forward to answer a research question around how do we mitigate concussions in college football players or college soccer or lacrosse players. And then when asked to step in as interim chancellor at UNC Chapel Hill, again, it was about asking good questions, surrounding yourself with the right people to test those that hypothesis and carry out the work, and then make a decision and then communicate it. So these leadership roles are very similar to that of a researcher, and so much of it comes down to building trust, making informed decisions, and communicating it out well. And so a lot of similarities.
With your busy schedule, are you still active in research when it comes to concussions?
Not as much as I'd like to be. My first year here, and we're coming up on the end of that first year, has been really about getting out to know this community at Michigan State, getting to know the state of Michigan. I've been on a 52-stop listening and learning tour that took much of the first 6 months, and then putting some priorities in place, working closely with faculty leadership, and we have incredible deans here that are committed to moving MSU forward and aligning to our strategic plan, MSU 2030. But we still are involved with some of the concussion work at the national level, part of 2 or 3 multi-center studies, and then trying to launch our program here, the Center for the Study of Retired Athletes that I started at UNC, and to get that in place here at MSU is a priority.
Interesting point about creating a Center for the Study of Retired Athletes. Well, that might be something the NCAA considers straight across the board. Well, when the sports life continues, more of our conversation with Michigan State President Kevin Guskiewicz right after this.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Dad, did you get a new haircut or something? A new shirt? You're looking good.
What happened?
A little fender bender?
How little?
A few days in the shop little, but thanks to Mom and our agent, we've already submitted a claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto Owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Sounds like simple human sense.
I'm fine, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna ask.
Ask your independent agent if Auto Owners makes sense for you.
This is a potter's field. When people can't pay for their funerals, they are buried here. It is a lonely, desolate place, littered with unmarked headstones. No one visits. No one leaves flowers. But it doesn't have to be that way. For as low as $1 a day, you can ensure your family will have the money to pay your funeral expenses. We offer burial insurance plans that pay up to $30,000. Considering the average funeral costs more than $10,000, that's peace of mind for your family. There are no medical exams, your rates won't increase, and your policy cannot be canceled as long as you make your premium payments. Call now to get approved in minutes and ensure your final resting place is more than just a pauper's grave in a potter's field.
800-562-2407. 800-562-2407. 800-562-2407. That's 800-562-2407. Paid for by Final Expense Direct.
We all make choices about alcohol. Kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye, Dad. Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, remind me about that party again?
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations, and they want honest answers in everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path, because when you talk, they hear you. Learn more at underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Here's a real-life story that affects 50% of all of us out there. It's called divorce. If you've gotten divorced and now you're struggling to pay your bills and your credit card debts are completely out of control, you need to call this special debt relief hotline right now. We help people with all kinds of money problems caused by different life challenges, a divorce, a job loss, even heavy medical bills. All these life events can sometimes financially stress you out and cause you to get out of control. We help people get their lives back by showing them ways to consolidate and reduce their debt, in some cases for a fraction of what they owe. If your credit card balances are more than $10,000, call us and learn how to reduce your credit card bills and monthly payments now. Here's our number.
Paid for by Debt.com. Call now, 800-810-1584, 800-810-1584, 800-810-1584. That's 800-810-1584.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. Will Tiemann here along with Dalton Shetler. And don't forget, Auto Owners Insurance, simple human sense. Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you. Well, this segment, our conversation with Michigan State President Kevin Guskiewicz, will continue. And as we have mentioned, he has a distinguished background in athletic training and research. Well, because of that, he was given a couple big-time awards. The first being the 2011 MacArthur Fellowship for his innovative work in the diagnosis, treatment, and prevention of sports-related concussions. Then in 2013, Time magazine named him a game changer, one of 18 innovators and problem solvers that have inspired change in America. So, as our conversation continues, my next question was how he felt about these awards.
Well, I'm very honored, and when the MacArthur award came, it's what they call an out-of-the-blue sort of call that you receive, and I happened to be at a concussion conference in Minneapolis, not too far from here, and I got this call, and they were trying to call me all day, and I'm in the middle of these meetings, and finally, as I was waiting for the shuttle bus to pick us up to go to the airport, I returned the call, and they said, "Are you in a private place?" And I said, "Not really. Why?" And they said, "Well, we need you to get to a quiet place, private place." And so I stepped into the restroom, which was the closest private place I could find, and where I learned that I was going to be awarded one of 21 recipients of the MacArthur Award that fall of 2011, and then the next several days were where they came to campus, and I did some filming of me and some members of my team, but we had to keep this all a secret for a period of time until they were announced later in the month. And so just very rewarding, and it was really a tribute to my research team there at the University of North Carolina. And then I think a few years after that came the Time Magazine Award, the Game Changer Award, and again, it's about teams, and it's not just about me. And as I've told people that my research team received the MacArthur Award, and it was that teamwork and one team approach that I like to talk about even here as the president of Michigan State, that allows you to be honored in this way for your leadership and taking on big challenges. So. But very, very honored to receive those gratifying and again, a tribute to so many good people that I've surrounded myself with.
Do you miss the day-to-day involvement with athletics?
Well, I'm a bit of a different probably university president, and I reach out often to our coaches, and just as I do with our deans and those in the provost's office and on my team. So I do try to stay in touch, and as I've told people that our coaches here at Michigan State are very much like our world-class faculty, in that they are always trying to better prepare our athletes for life after their sport. Our world-class faculty are preparing our students for careers and jobs that don't even yet exist today, and so they function much in the same way. And so I enjoy those interactions. But yeah, this is why sometimes I talk about my therapy is actually to get out to a practice or to a game and to hang out with some of the coaches and student athletes.
I would take you back for a couple fun questions here. Played high school sports. Now you're going to go to school. What led you into athletic training?
Well, because I was constantly injured. I was about 135 pounds soaking wet trying to play defensive back on a pretty good high school football team in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. And, I think it was a broken wrist that set me out for a season. And so I learned how to tape ankles, on the cuff. And the athletic director there sent me up to Penn State for a summer week-long athletic training camp for high schoolers, and I kind of took a liking to it, and ended up still trying to play football, played tennis in the spring, and then in the winter months I served as the athletic trainer at the high school my, junior, senior year. and then decided that was a field I wanted to pursue in college, and went off to Westchester University, where they had one of the top programs in the country at the undergraduate level. Yeah. And just really enjoyed the clinical work that came with the classroom curricular work, and then went on to University of Pittsburgh for my master's, and was fortunate enough to be able to work for the Pittsburgh Steelers while I was there. That was my internship. I grew up a lifelong Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and the opportunity then for nearly 3 years during my master's program at Pitt to work there as an athletic trainer for my assistantship was just a dream come true. And I was there during Chuck Noll's last few years, legendary coach there. So, and then from there, I ultimately ended up going into the research track, and but it was that foundation of schooling that started in high school and led me up through my college degrees.
I just find it amazing. Somebody so involved in the pursuit of wellness, so to speak, would wind up in the job you have. It's got to be one of the most unique paths ever to get to be a university president, don't you think?
What are you trying to say, Will? But again, I have said that I like, it's about building teams, and I learned that sort of on the athletic sideline and hanging out with coaches, and that you build the right team, you can take on big challenges. And I love public higher education. I've been a product of public higher education my whole life, and I feel like I've been able to make a difference as we really prepare students for life after college, but also what goes beyond just their chosen discipline, whether they're an engineering student, a pre-med student, a history major. It's about breadth across the different disciplines. It's preparing students how to be, how to think creatively, how to be, work in a collaborative environment, and how to communicate effectively. And that's something that I really enjoy, and I think I like to take on that responsibility. And that higher ed has a responsibility to do that as we prepare the next generation of leaders to be active participants in a thriving democracy, and it's probably more important now than ever.
So when you're in your meeting with your fellow chancellors and presidents, they know your background. Do they reach out to you for some input about things they may not understand?
At times, and I think I've been asked to serve on some of the committees within the NCAA and within the conferences to around health and safety. And so when issues come up around those topics, even those beyond just concussion. I mean, during COVID, we had challenges there that we had to think about whether we should be playing, and what should the restrictions be. And so my colleagues had turned to me on for some of my background, expertise, experience there, and I enjoy playing that role.
Have you ever thought of championing some legislation for the NCAA?
Well, again, I think the NCAA it's had some challenges, obviously, over the years. I think Charlie Baker was a good selection for thinking about legislation. I know that while I haven't talked to him recently, it's probably been 7-8 months ago. I know that he has spent a lot of time up in Congress, as a 2-term governor from Massachusetts. I know he has worked across the aisle very effectively, and that's something we're relying on for him to be able to do, to help us think about what legislation should look like coming out of Congress. And then obviously there's legislation just within the NCAA as a governing body itself, and again, a lot of opinions on that. I'm probably going to hold that for another day, but we have to see what's going to happen coming out of this this settlement, and so that we can hit a reset, and then it's going to probably take a few years to see how this is working, and how that some of the decisions that are being made may be challenged, or I hope more so help to move us forward.
Well, we sure have touched on a handful of topics. Anything you want to add I haven't asked you about?
Well, I'm excited to be here. We have amazing coaches, as I've already said, and I've really enjoyed getting to know them. I'm proud of the fact that we're having our best year ever academically for the first time ever for Michigan State Athletics. Every team finished the fall with both semester and cumulative GPAs above 3.0, resulting in an all-time department highs for both semesters and cumulative GPAs. And really proud of the success that our student athletes have, not only on the playing fields and courts, and but also in the classroom. And again, it gets back to my point about us needing to prepare these student athletes for life after their sport. And so that's the a lot, just one of many great things that are happening here. We also have, as you well know, several of our teams this winter here that are ranked in the top 10. Things are going fantastic for our hockey team, our gymnastics team. Both men's and women's basketball teams are playing great. Volleyball, we just named Kristen Kelsey as our new volleyball coach, and I know she's going to build on a strong foundation there. And so Jonathan Smith, our new football coach, is having a great off season here in terms of trying to retain some of the top players on the football team and going out and recruiting some others. And I've enjoyed getting to know some of those recruits. So I think the future is very bright.
Well, Kevin, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. We'll really appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you.
Some of the thoughts on a variety of topics from Michigan State President Kevin Guskiewicz. When we come back, we're going to have our salute to Black History Month. But first, this time out.
So, got one for you, boss.
Oh, yeah?
What's black, white, and dented all over?
I give up.
The company truck. I know, but thanks to our agent, we've already submitted an insurance claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Lucky for you, that's simple human sense.
Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
Do you hear that? That's the sound of uncertainty lurking under your hood. You know the feeling. I know I do. That sudden sinking sensation when you see a check engine light or your car unexpectedly breaks down and you're faced with sky-high repair bills. It's time to shield against unexpected repairs with CarShield. CarShield is America's most trusted auto protection company and has an A rating with the Better Business Bureau. Don't let the fear of a breakdown keep you up at night. Trust the Shield, CarShield, and say goodbye to terrifying repair bills and hello to peace of mind. Your plan also comes with 24/7 roadside assistance, courtesy towing, rental car options, and so much more. Don't wait till it's too late. Call CarShield now before a breakdown. Protect your wallet. Protect your car with CarShield. Get our best protection ever. Call now. You'll thank me later. 800-965-1292. 800-965-1292. That's 800-965-1292.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Did you receive a call or message that mentioned Social Security and demanded immediate action? Did the caller know your Social Security number or other personal information and tell you that your Social Security number had been used in connection with the crime? Did you feel worried that your Social Security number might be suspended, your bank account might be frozen or seized, or you could be arrested? That is not the Social Security Administration. Social Security will not threaten you, demand your personal information, or instant payment, email or text you pictures or documents, or use a real government official's name to gain your trust. Social Security does not accept payments by gift card, prepaid debit card, internet currency, or by mailing cash. Criminals use these forms of payment because they are hard to trace. Do not be fooled. Hang up. Ignore them. Report this criminal activity to the Social Security Administration Office of the Inspector General at oig.ssa.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Well, it is Black History Month, and a year ago on this program, we presented as a tribute to that a feature about the game of change. And it was a moving piece. It's a big part of our history, and it's a major, major thing in the world of college basketball. And in honor of that game and how it affected our lives today, we bring back an encore performance of this presentation. This week's cover story takes us back to March 15th, 1963, and the NCAA Tournament Mid-East Regional. The tournament site location was on the campus of Michigan State University in East Lansing. The site was the Jennison Fieldhouse, and the opponents were the Ramblers of Loyola Chicago and the Bulldogs from Mississippi State. Now, this landmark matchup would come to be known as the Game of Change, and is remembered as the major event leading to the desegregation of college basketball. So, who are the main characters in this amazing sports narrative? Well, you have a couple of basketball teams, one from the north with 4 starting black players, and an opponent whose starters are all white and come from a state in the south that prohibits their teams from playing any opponent that is not all white. The starring roles in this history-making story belong to the president of Mississippi State, Dr. Dean Colvard, and the head basketball coach of the MSU Bulldogs, Babe McCarthy. Now, like all great stories, there needs to be some conflict, and boy, does this story have some conflict. You see, Mississippi State had won the SEC title 4 out of 5 seasons, and leading up to the 1962-63 campaign, the Bulldogs were looking for its 3rd straight conference championship. The conflict? Mississippi State kept earning the right to participate in the NCAA basketball tournament, but due to the state of Mississippi's Jim Crow law, all white teams were prohibited from competing against a team with black players. So, the Bulldogs were prohibited from competing in the NCAA tournament. But change was in the air. Doug Hutton was one of the starters on that 1962-63 team.
Well, my sophomore year, we qualified to go, and we didn't get to go. And they had qualified 1 year before that to get to go to the tournament. And before our season started in '62, our president of the school met with us and told us, boys, if we qualify for to play in the tournament this year, I'm going to do everything I can do to make sure we do that. So that's kind of, what got it started.
And so were you guys surprised when the president said that to you?
Well, he was from North Carolina, and I don't guess he was really, like some of the southern people were. But he just felt like that we deserved that, or our school deserved that.
So Mississippi State won the SEC again, and this time it had the support of the school president and the state's Board of Trustees of Higher Learning to finally play in the NCAA tournament. However, the governor of the state of Mississippi and other leaders did not support this and had subpoenas issued as a way to keep the team from leaving the state. So to keep from being served with subpoenas, the school's president, Dean Colvard, left the state, didn't even tell his wife where he was going, and headed off to Birmingham, Alabama. And Coach Babe McCarthy snuck out of Mississippi in the back of a car, and he wound up in Nashville, Tennessee. So how did the team ever get out of Starkville? Again, Doug Hutton.
Coach McCarthy came and told us, that when the plane landed to pick us up, he was going to send 6 of the players who, I don't know how to put this, but they don't play very much. And they sent him, these 6 people, down to see if the injunction was going to be someone down there, to keep us from going. And that was about 8 o'clock in the morning. And when they got down there, the sheriff, who said that he'd never intended to serve the injunction, against us going, he was not there. So they called the rest of us, and we all ran down there and jumped on the plane, and of course we took off. And it was really funny when we landed in Michigan, and we started out getting out of the plane. There was a band sitting over at the side, about a 10-piece band, and our manager walked over there, one of them called him over there, and said, "Who are y'all? Where y'all from?" And he said, "Well, Yeah, we're from Mississippi State. Why? And they said, well, we heard that y'all got arrested and wasn't going to get to come. And we didn't know whether to play Ramblin' Wreck of Georgia Tech or Hell State because we didn't know who was going to be showing up to play.
Jerry Harkness was an All-American and the best player on the Loyola team. And like most who played in this game, had no idea at the time of its historic significance.
I had no idea that it would be that big. I think, though, when I went up to shake Joe Dango's hand and the flashes went off, then I realized, I said, oh my gosh, this is more than a game. That went through my mind. I said, then I realized that this was history. I mean, not until that time. And I went back and I got a little warm and I just was a little flustered there. And then I went back to the group, the Loyola team, and I felt a little bit better. I got myself together, and then we went to play the game. During the game, I didn't think anything about it. After the game, I did. And when Joe Dan and I shook hands, oh my goodness, I'll never forget that feeling that I had with him. And it turned out to be a lasting feeling because we became the best of friends. We had so much in common. We both worked with kids, were mentors. We both had cancer. And we had all these things in common. So it's ironic and it's strange how one thing could bring you together where at other times you would never, ever come together.
We mentioned earlier that the Ramblers started 4 black players. The 5th starter, a guard, John Egan, was white.
It didn't feel different. It wasn't like as if I'm feeling awfully strange playing against these white guys with these black guys, like it's the blacks against the whites, and what am I doing here? It was never that issue, okay? Because it was just Loyola versus Mississippi State.
And Egan, like his teammate Harkness, at the time did not see the game as historically significant.
Not really. I mean, I knew what was going on in Mississippi before our game. And when we knew we were going to be playing Mississippi, I knew what was going on in Mississippi for Mississippi to come to play us. I didn't know what was going on in Mississippi, in general, but I didn't know the trauma and the dramatics of, them attempting to get out of town. I didn't know anything about those things. All we knew is that it appears as though we might play them. We might not.
Well, the game was played, and Loyola defeated Mississippi State 61-51. And the Ramblers would go on to win the 1963 NCAA National Championship by coming back and defeating Cincinnati in overtime. So, it's now time for Mississippi State to head back to Starkville. Again, Bulldog starter Doug Hutton.
That was really funny, too, because when we flew over where we were going to land, it was cars everywhere, My girlfriend, who I actually married 2 years later, her and their parents drove 120 miles to welcome us back. And when we saw all those cars and when we flew over, one or two of the players said, "You reckon they're going to send us back to Michigan, or reckon what they're all doing here?" But everybody that was, had anything to do with Mississippi State and our athletics was in favor of us going to play in this tournament.
The one thing we have yet to mention in our story is the now famous before-the-game handshake between the two captains, Jerry Harkness of Loyola and Joe Dan Gold of Mississippi State. The reaction to this historic moment, known through its famous photograph, was captured beautifully in the NCAA documentary Game of Change, produced by Gerald Harkness, Jerry's son. Here are the reflections from the documentary from Jerry Harkness, Joe Dan Gold, John Egan, and Chicago Tribune sports writer Bill Jouse.
I looked the captain of Mississippi State in the face, and we smiled at each other and kind of did a little small nod, not really realizing what was taking place.
I went out as the captain to shake hands with Jerry Hartnett. I do remember seeming like the flash bulbs went off.
Bulbs were just popping all over the place.
I remember the two guys being illuminated at half court.
The place lit up like Mayor Daley's Christmas tree in Chicago. It was just everybody had a flash bulb. But when those bulbs popped and everything, and I felt the tension, I said, oh, this is more than a game. This is more than a game.
He was so right. It was much more than a game. Back with more of the sports life in just a moment.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Dad. Did you get a new haircut or something? A new shirt? You're looking good.
What happened?
A little fender bender?
How little?
A few days in the shop little, but thanks to Mom and our agent, we've already submitted a claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto Owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Sounds like simple human sense.
I'm fine, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna ask.
Ask your independent agent if Auto Owners makes sense for you.
Everything is expensive right now. Gas, food, you name it. You're spending more, you are making the same or less money. So, what do? You rack up credit card debt, that's what you do. It's not your fault. It's the economy. And guess what? If you rack up too much credit card debt like some of us, you can't pay your bills. Then the credit card companies, as nice as they are, start hounding you for money. Then you start your downward spiral. A smart thing for you to do is to call the Zero Debt. They can help you consolidate all your credit card bills into one affordable payment. Millions of people have done it. It works to make you debt-free. Make this free call right now. It costs you nothing to learn more.
800-298-9093. 800-298-9093. 800-298-9093. That's 800-298-9093.
We are strong, we are resilient, and we will get through this together. But these are stressful times, and it's important to also practice good self-care. It's normal to feel overwhelmed, anxious, or afraid, but there is hope. Reach out to someone, connect with your friends, stay in touch with your community, and know that you are not alone. Learn more at wearebroadcasters.com/hope. Furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
I found hope in the midst of an overwhelming situation.
Alcoholism is a disease that can affect any family. Everyone suffers, but there is help and hope at Al-Anon Family Groups.
Al-Anon gave me my life back. I'm a better father and husband.
Are you in an overwhelming situation because of someone else's drinking?
Al-Anon and Alateen can help.
Local and virtual meetings are available. Maybe one could work for you. Call 1-866-200-0033 or visit alanon.org/hope.
I'm Naheem Hines, professional football player. No matter the challenges I face every day in the NFL, my mom is always there for me, despite her own struggles with muscular dystrophy. And MDA is there for my mom. At their 150 care centers across the U.S., MDA is the leading organization in research and care for kids and adults with muscular dystrophy, ALS, and related neuromuscular diseases. Join me and learn more at helpmda.org today. Thank you.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. Will Tiemann here along with Dalton Shetler. Well, we had a pretty interesting show so far. I think the interview, Dalton, with Michigan State President Kevin Guskiewicz was really good because he's been down roads most of us have not been down as he tries to connect the dots. And I think his input will be very valuable moving forward in the wide world of intercollegiate athletics. And the game had changed. It's just special, and I've often wondered when it was going on, everybody participating in it, if they really understood the gravity of what they were doing.
It feels like it'd be hard to understand in that moment, but given the hindsight, how could you not be blown away with what it was? And you'd be blown away in person, but the idea of fully understanding and fully comprehending the levels of this? It's kind of hard to imagine.
It really is. Well, it's now time for our parting shot, so Mr. Dalton, what do you got?
By the way, make sure you check us out on Twitter or X. @SportsLifeNow is our handle. That's, again, @SportsLifeNow. We post all the content there. Make sure you give us a follow there on Twitter or X. But for my parting shot, I actually had a chance here, Will, and you've been able to cross this off your list before, but to go to Pauley Pavilion and experience a historic gymnasium in Pauley Pavilion. And I don't know if you're a little bit like me, Will, but I certainly grew up a gym rat, loving basketball, and kind of always carried around with me a bucket list of basketball gyms and venues to go to. And this finally crossed that one off for me, and been blessed with this job, especially around the Big Ten, to go to many: Mackey Arena, Assembly Hall in Bloomington, Assembly Hall in Champaign, the Breslin Center, so on and so forth. And outside of that, Cameron Indoor Stadium. And I was thinking that there's so many different fans that might be able to relate to this too. The idea of some of those places that you still want to go to. And my personal bucket list, now with Pauley crossed off, I still have to go to Rupp Arena at Kentucky. Have not been there. Fog Allen Fieldhouse in Kansas. Have not been there. Still need to make it to Carmichael in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And the Kennel at Gonzaga. That one's sneaking onto my list here late as well. But for the most part, most of my bucket list has been crossed off with the Palestra, Hinkle Fieldhouse, Madison Square Garden. But I think every fan might have a list like this. I was curious if you have some that you still, and all this time, have yet to get to.
Actually, I have gotten to everyone where I wanted to go.
How lucky is that?
I mean, to be honest with you, my last two were the Palestra and Hinkle Fieldhouse. And I was beginning to think I was never going to get to Hinkle Fieldhouse, and it finally happened. And boy, what an evening that was! It was so much fun. I remember we arrived there before the game. There were students lined up everywhere, and the place was rocking. But we also took time to walk around the historic building and look at some of the plaques, and so. And you're right. You get to walk in these places and you go, I can't believe I'm really here. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those places you talked about, when I first went into them, I went, oh, my goodness. I'm at Pauley Pavilion, you know.
It's not just a game day. Now. It's a different game day when you walk in those.
And this kind of thing, though, is why intercollegiate athletics, college sports, college basketball is so big, because there's this history that we all can connect to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I have an idea to help officiating in college basketball.
I think they're all ears.
I mean, I think most college basketball fans don't leave the arena going, wow, that game was perfectly officiated, which in all fairness is impossible to do. But there have been some issues, and here's my solution, and it's not a new one. I don't believe the officials are incompetent. I really don't. I think there are some really skilled individuals out there, but I do believe they work too many games. And we all know, and everybody listening knows, when you are tired, you're not quite as sharp, right? Mm-hmm. Basketball players don't play quite as well when they've had a lot of games in a row. So I think at some point in time, since there seems to be money floating everywhere, maybe it's time to take a look at a different way of doing the officiating things. Instead of saying, got some Big Ten guys here or whatever, why don't we just have a group of officials like the NBA has? I mean, our guys in college basketball, some of them work almost double the number allowed by the NBA. So why don't we just think about one big pool of great officials, have some rules, let them get some rest. If you got to up their pay, well, go ahead and up it. I'm guessing there's some cash for that.
Right.
So that's my parting shot.
I like it.
And with that, that's a wrap for our show for this week. As always, appreciate everybody joining us. And don't forget, you can find us wherever you find your podcasts, like SoundCloud, Spotify, and Apple. And make sure to check us out and hit subscribe. As always, thanks to the Big Ten Network. The Sports Life is produced by Dalton Shetler. And our executive producer is Wendy Hart. So on behalf of Dalton Shetler, I'm Will Tiemann, and thanks for your time.